The massive chamber fell silent as the holographic display flickered to life. Hundreds of alien representatives from across the galaxy watched in horror as human soldiers moved across the battlefield like death itself. The footage showed Earth's army cutting through enemy lines with a brutality that made even the most warlike species uncomfortable. Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire stood before the assembly, his forearms gesturing at the terrible images. His blue skin had turned pale with fear. "Look at them," he said, his voice shaking. "They do not retreat. They do not surrender. Even when their bodies are broken, they keep fighting." The hologram showed a human soldier with a missing arm still firing his weapon. Another crawled forward with both legs destroyed, pulling himself with his hands to reach the enemy. The aliens in the chamber shifted nervously in their seats. Many had never seen such determination. "This footage comes from the Kepler system battle," Admiral Kethvar continued. "Our allies, the Drachmoth Confederation, had 10,000 warriors. The humans had only 3,000. Logic said the Drachmoth would win easily. They were wrong." The display changed to show the aftermath. Drachmoth bodies lay everywhere while human medics worked to save their wounded. The humans had lost half their force, but they had won. More importantly, they had shown no mercy to enemies who asked for none. Counselor Yeath of the Crystal Collective raised her crystalline hand. Her voice rang like bells when she spoke. "We have studied their military doctrine. They call it total war. When humans fight, they use everything. Their factories become weapon makers. Their civilians become soldiers. Their children learn war songs." Murmurs of concern spread through the chamber. Most galactic civilizations kept warfare separate from civilian life. The idea that an entire species could become a military machine was terrifying. "There is worse," added General Voss of the Titanium clans. His metal body clanked as he stood. "They fight in conditions that would kill most of us. We watched them battle in the ice storms of Hoth Prime. The temperature was minus 40 degrees. The wind could tear metal apart, but the humans adapted. They always adapt." The hologram showed human soldiers in heavy winter gear, moving through a blizzard that completely hid them from view. They appeared and disappeared like ghosts, striking enemy positions and vanishing before retaliation could come. Their enemies, warm-blooded aliens who needed heated shelters, found themselves hunted in their own defensive positions. Commander Zilp of the insectoid swarms clicked his mandibles nervously. "Our species pride ourselves on unit cohesion. We move as one mind, one purpose. But humans—" He paused, searching for words. "They are pack hunters. Each one thinks independently, but they work together perfectly. It should not be possible." The display showed a human squad in action. One soldier provided covering fire while another flanked left. A third used explosives to create a new path while the fourth called in support from orbit. Each human made his own decisions, but somehow they all worked toward the same goal. It was like watching a pack of wolves hunt, but wolves with advanced weapons and tactical training. "They have a saying," said Ambassador Trill of the Peaceful Federation. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Leave no man behind." We thought it was just words until we saw what it meant. The hologram changed to show a human rescue mission. 50 soldiers had gone behind enemy lines to save 5 wounded comrades. The logical choice would have been to abandon the wounded and save the larger force. Instead, the humans had fought for 6 hours against overwhelming odds to bring their people home. They had succeeded, but the cost had been enormous. Any other species would have retreated, Trill continued, but humans value each individual life so highly that they will sacrifice everything to save even one of their own. How do you fight an enemy that sees death as acceptable but abandonment as unthinkable? Admiral Kethvar activated another recording. This one showed human engineers working under fire to repair a damaged bridge. Enemy artillery fell around them like rain, but they kept working. When the bridge was finished, they had created a path for their army to advance. 3 engineers had died, but their sacrifice had won the battle. "They turned their dead into weapons," he said quietly. "Not literally, but in spirit. Every fallen human becomes a reason for the others to fight harder. Their grief becomes fury. Their loss becomes strength." Council Speaker Zara, eldest of all present, finally spoke. Her ancient voice carried the weight of millennia. "In all my years, I have never seen a species like this. They are not the strongest or the fastest. Their technology is good but not exceptional. Their ships are solid but not superior. Yet they win battles they should lose." She gestured to the display, which now showed human casualties being treated. Even the wounded were helping each other. sharing medical supplies and encouraging their comrades. No one gave up hope. The question before us is simple, Zara continued. Do we allow this species to continue expanding into our galaxy? Do we wait until they grow strong enough to threaten us all, or do we act now, while we still have the advantage of numbers and technology? The debate that followed was heated but brief. Species after species spoke of human victories that defied explanation. The quantum builders told of humans who had learned their technology in days rather than decades. The energy beings described human pilots who flew through solar storms that should have been impossible to navigate. In the end, the vote was unanimous. Humanity was too dangerous to be allowed to grow stronger. The Galactic Coalition would mobilize the largest fleet in history and strike before the humans could prepare. Admiral Kethvar was chosen to lead the assault. As the council dispersed, he studied the human footage one more time. Something bothered him about their tactics, but he could not identify what it was. The humans fought well, but they were still bound by the same limitations as any military force. They had supply lines to cut, bases to attack, and leaders to eliminate. We have the advantage of surprise, he told his aide. Our fleet will be 50 times larger than anything humanity has assembled. Our weapons are more advanced. Our shields are stronger. Yes, they are dangerous, but they are still mortal. As his ship prepared for departure, Admiral Kethvar felt confident. The humans had impressed him with their regular armies, but war was about more than individual courage. It was about resources, strategy, and overwhelming force. The Galactic Coalition had all three. What the Admiral did not know was that everything he had seen represented only a fraction of human military capability. The armies that had so terrified the galaxy were just the beginning. Hidden in the shadows of human space, other forces waited. Forces that made regular soldiers look gentle by comparison. Earth's special forces had been watching the galaxy's reaction to their conventional military. They had noted which species seemed most concerned, which leaders spoke of preemptive strikes, and which systems would likely be used as staging areas for an attack. The hunt was about to begin, and the predators had already chosen their prey. The mining colony of New Prosperity sat quietly on the edge of human space. Its 12,000 inhabitants worked the asteroid fields, pulling rare metals from floating rocks that had been drifting in space for billions of years. The colony looked peaceful from a distance, almost defenseless. Admiral Kethvar studied the sensor readings from his flagship. His massive fleet of 800 ships hung in space just outside the system, preparing for their first strike against humanity. Intelligence reports said New Prosperity had only a small garrison, maybe 200 soldiers at most. It would be the perfect place to test human defenses and send a message. Target confirmed, reported Captain Yill from the scanning station. Minimal military presence detected. Standard defensive platforms, nothing unusual. The humans appear to have been caught completely off guard. The Admiral nodded. Everything was going according to plan. The galaxy's greatest military minds had spent months preparing this assault. They had studied every human battle, analyzed every tactic, and prepared counters for every strategy. The humans were dangerous, but they were not invincible. Begin the attack, he ordered. All ships advance to attack formation. Show them the power of the Galactic Coalition. The fleet moved forward like a metal storm. Hundreds of ships, each one larger and more advanced than anything in the human fleet, descended on the mining colony. Energy weapons lit up space as they fired on the defensive platforms. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers against the dark. The human response was exactly what the aliens expected. The garrison fought hard, using their defensive positions well and making the aliens pay for every meter of space. But they were outnumbered 4-1, and their weapons could not match the Coalition's advanced shields and armor. Within 3 hours, it was over. The human defenders had been overwhelmed, their ships destroyed, their stations captured. Admiral Kethvar felt a moment of disappointment. After all the warnings about human ferocity, this had been almost too easy. "Sir," called the communications officer, "we are receiving surrender requests from the civilian population. They are asking for mercy and offering to cooperate." "Accepted," the Admiral replied. "Secure the colony and begin processing prisoners." This is exactly what we expected from human military forces. But as his fleet settled into occupation positions around the colony, something nagged at the Admiral's mind. The battle had been too clean, too predictable. The humans had fought well, but they had not displayed the desperate creativity that had made them legendary. Where were the impossible tactics? Where was the refusal to surrender, sir? The scanner operator's voice was sharp with alarm. New contacts approaching from the outer system. Multiple ships, small and fast. They are not broadcasting identification codes. Admiral Kethvar moved to the scanner station. The display showed at least 30 ships approaching at high speed, but something was wrong with the readings. The ships appeared to be much smaller than standard human military vessels, yet they were moving faster than anything in the Coalition database. Are they reinforcements from the human fleet? He asked. Unknown, sir. The sensor signatures do not match any known human ship class. They are somehow masking their true size and capabilities. The approaching ships made no attempt to communicate. They did not demand surrender or threaten retaliation. They simply came forward in complete silence, like sharks moving through dark water. Defensive positions, ordered the Admiral. All ships prepare for combat. These may be the real human forces, but as the unknown ships reached weapons range, they did something no military commander expected. Instead of forming up for a traditional attack, they scattered in all directions. Some disappeared entirely from sensors, using stealth technology that should not have existed. Others began moving in patterns that seemed random, but somehow felt purposeful. The first Coalition ship died without ever seeing its killer. The massive cruiser simply exploded from the inside, its hull cracking open like an egg. Seconds later, another ship suffered the same fate. Then another. "Report!" shouted the Admiral. "What is happening out there?" "Unknown, sir. Ships are being destroyed, but we cannot identify the source of the attacks. The enemy vessels are not where our sensors say they should be." On the main display, Admiral Kethvar watched his fleet begin to die, but this was not like any battle he had ever seen. There were no massive energy exchanges, no grand tactical maneuvers, no heroic charges. His ships were simply being hunted, picked off one by an enemy that refused to fight fairly. A new report came in from Captain Zoss of the destroyer Talon's Edge. "Admiral, we have been boarded." "Repeat, we have been boarded. Unknown forces are moving through our ship. They are not using the airlocks or docking bays. I do not know how they got inside." "Reinforce your security teams," the Admiral ordered. "Repel the boarders." "Sir, we cannot find them. They strike and disappear. My security teams are reporting contacts in sections that should be empty. When they arrive, there is no one there, but our people are dead." Admiral Kethvar felt a chill run through his body. This was not how warfare was supposed to work. Enemies were supposed to be visible, to follow predictable patterns, to fight with honor and strategy. These attackers moved like ghosts, striking from impossible angles and vanishing before retaliation could come. "All ships, emergency jump preparation," he commanded. "We are withdrawing from this system immediately." But as his fleet tried to retreat, they discovered that escape would not be easy. The strange enemy ships had somehow positioned themselves to cut off the most direct escape routes. Every time a Coalition vessel tried to jump to hyperspace, one of the invisible attackers would appear and damage their engines at exactly the right moment. "Sir," reported the tactical officer, "we are being herded. The enemy is not trying to destroy our entire fleet. They are forcing us to move in specific directions." The Admiral realized with growing horror that this entire engagement had been planned from the beginning. The easy victory at the mining colony had been a trap. The scattered approach of the enemy ships had been perfectly calculated to split his forces. Even now, as his fleet struggled to escape, they were being guided exactly where their hunters wanted them to go. On his personal display, he reviewed the casualties. 60 ships had been destroyed or disabled, but the enemy had not lost a single vessel. More disturbing was how they had been killed. Most ships showed signs of internal explosions, as if the attackers had somehow gotten inside and sabotaged critical systems. "Admiral," came another report, this one from the carrier Void's Pride. "We have captured images of the boarders. Sending now." The display showed a brief recording from a security camera. For just a moment, Admiral Kethvar saw the enemy clearly. They were humans, but not like the soldiers from the mining colony. These figures moved with a fluid precision that seemed almost inhuman. They wore advanced armor that bent light around them, making them nearly invisible. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to know exactly where to go and what to target, as if they had studied his ship's designs for years. As his fleet finally broke free of the trap and jumped to safety, Admiral Kethvar stared at the casualty reports. In less than 6 hours, he had lost nearly a quarter of his force to an enemy he had barely seen. The humans at the mining colony had fought like soldiers. These new enemies had hunted like predators. "Sir," asked his aide quietly. What do we tell the Coalition Council? Admiral Kethavar did not answer immediately. How could he explain that humanity apparently had forces that made their regular army look tame? How could he describe warriors who fought without honor, without grand gestures, without any of the things that made warfare comprehensible? Tell them, he said finally, that we have made a terrible mistake. We thought we understood what humanity was capable of. We were wrong. Commander Sarah Chen floated in the darkness between stars, watching the alien fleet through her helmet's advanced sensors. Around her, 37 other members of Task Force Phantom waited in perfect silence. They had been drifting in space for 6 hours, using specialized suits that made them invisible to almost any scanning system. Confirmed visual on the primary target, whispered Lieutenant Marcus Webb over the private communication channel. Admiral's flagship, 2 kilometers dead ahead. Security looks standard for their species. Sarah studied the massive Zephyrian vessel through her scope. Intelligence had identified Admiral Keithfar as the fleet commander, and taking him alive would provide valuable information about the Coalition's plans. More importantly, it would send a message that nowhere was safe from Earth's reach. Delta Team, what is your status? She asked. In position, came the reply from Captain James Rodriguez. We have eyes on the carrier. Their hangar bay security is laughably weak. Should be able to get inside without triggering any alarms. Sarah nodded to herself. This was what separated special forces from regular military. While armies fought battles, operators like these eliminated specific targets with surgical precision. They had spent 3 years training for space warfare, learning to think in 3 dimensions, to use zero gravity as a weapon instead of a hindrance. Echo Team reporting, said Master Sergeant Liu Zhang. We have finished planting charges on their supply convoy. When those ships explode, it will look like an accident. Their own fuel will do most of the work. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. While the aliens expected another military engagement, special forces would strike at their leadership, their supplies, and their morale simultaneously. By the time the Coalition realized what was happening, their fleet would be blind, hungry, and leaderless. All teams begin Phase 1, Sarah ordered. Remember, we are ghosts. They should never know we were here until it is too late. Lieutenant Webb's team moved first, using micro-thrusters that produced no detectable signature. They approached the flagship's hull. Standard alien engineering used smooth surfaces that looked impressive but offered no handholds. Human operators had trained for this, using magnetic clamps and specialized tools to attach themselves to any surface. Webb placed a small device against the ship's hull and waited. The scanner read the internal structure, identifying corridors, ventilation shafts, and power conduits. After 30 seconds, it had mapped the optimal entry point. Breaching now, he whispered. The cutting tool made no sound in space, but it sliced through the alien metal like paper. Within minutes, Webb's team had created an opening barely large enough for a human body. One by one, they slipped inside the flagship. The ship's interior was designed for tall, blue-skinned Zephyrians. The corridors were too high and too wide for efficient human movement, but the operators adapted instantly. They moved along the walls and ceiling, using magnetic boots to walk on any surface. To the ship's security sensors, they appeared to be nothing more than minor air current fluctuations. Meanwhile, Captain Rodriguez's team had reached the carrier's hangar bay. Instead of cutting through the hull, they had chosen a more direct approach. Rodriguez triggered a small device that mimicked the carrier's own landing signals. The hangar bay doors opened automatically, expecting to receive a returning fighter. The team slipped inside during the few seconds the doors were open. They moved through the hangar like shadows, avoiding the automated systems and alien maintenance crews. Their target was not the fighters themselves, but the hangar's control systems. Master Sergeant Zhang placed the last explosive charge on the supply convoy's fuel tanker. The device was smaller than a coin, but contained enough focused energy to turn the tanker into a miniature star. When it exploded, the other supply ships would be caught in the chain reaction. All charges placed, he reported. Ready for detonation on your command. Sarah checked her mission timer. Everything was proceeding perfectly, but the most difficult part was still ahead. Getting inside enemy ships was only half the mission. The real challenge was achieving their objectives without being detected. Lieutenant Webb's team had reached the flagship's command center. Through the ventilation system, they could see Admiral Kethvar reviewing tactical displays with his senior officers. The aliens were discussing their recent defeat at the mining colony, trying to understand how they had lost so many ships to an invisible enemy. "How do they move so quickly?" one officer was saying. "Our sensors show them in one location, but they attack from another. It is as if they can be in multiple places at once." Admiral Kethvar studied the holographic display showing human ship movements. "There is something we are missing. No species fights like this. They use tactics that should be impossible." Webb smiled grimly inside his helmet. If the aliens thought regular human tactics were impossible, they were about to get a real education. He placed a small listening device on the ventilation grating and prepared to move to the next phase. Captain Rodriguez's team had reached the carrier's main computer system. Unlike human technology, which was designed with security in mind, alien systems assumed that anyone with physical access was authorized to be there. Rodriguez plugged in a device that began copying the carrier's entire database. "Jackpot," he whispered. "Fleet positions, supply schedules, communication codes, and tactical plans. The aliens just handed us their entire operation." But the real prize was what the device did next. Instead of simply stealing information, it began subtly altering the carrier's systems. Navigation would develop minor errors. Weapons targeting would become slightly less accurate. Life support would experience random fluctuations that would keep the crew nervous and tired. The changes were small enough to seem like normal technical problems, but when combined, they would degrade the ship's combat effectiveness by 30%. More importantly, the aliens would never realize they had been sabotaged. Sarah's own team had the most dangerous assignment. They had to reach the fleet's communication hub and plant a virus that would spread through the entire coalition network. The hub was located on a heavily defended space station, surrounded by automated weapons and security fields. Instead of attacking the defenses directly, they used a technique that no alien species had ever imagined. Sarah's team hid inside a supply pod that was scheduled for delivery to the station. When the pod was brought aboard, they waited until the cargo bay was empty, then emerged and began their infiltration. The station's security was designed to keep ships out, not to stop individuals who were already inside. Sarah and her team moved through maintenance tunnels and service corridors, following a path they had memorized from stolen construction plans. Approaching the communication center, Sarah reported. 2 guards at the main entrance, standard energy weapons. No heavy security. She studied the guards through her scope. They looked bored and overconfident, exactly what she had hoped for. A small gas pellet rolled across the floor, releasing a chemical that would make the guards drowsy but leave no trace in their systems. Within minutes, both aliens were asleep at their posts. The communication center's main computer was a work of art, a crystalline structure that processed data at quantum speeds. Sarah approached it carefully, knowing that one mistake would trigger alarms throughout the fleet. The virus she carried had been designed specifically for alien technology. Instead of destroying systems, it would make subtle changes to communication protocols. Orders would be delayed by a few minutes. Sensor data would be slightly inaccurate. Most importantly, any attempt to call for reinforcements would fail at critical moments. "Package delivered," she whispered as the virus upload completed. Returning to extraction point. Across the fleet, all teams completed their missions simultaneously. Master Sergeant Zhang's explosives detonated in perfect sequence, turning the supply convoy into a chain of explosions that lit up space like fireworks. The aliens immediately assumed they were under attack and began defensive maneuvers, but their ship's systems had been compromised. Navigation errors sent vessels into collision courses with their own allies. Weapons systems fired at phantom targets while real threats went undetected. Communication breakdowns left commanders unable to coordinate their forces. Admiral Kethvar stood on his bridge, watching his fleet tear itself apart. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Report." "Sir, we are experiencing multiple system failures across the entire fleet," his aide replied. "Communication arrays are down. Navigation is unreliable, and our sensors are showing contradictory data." The admiral realized with growing horror that his fleet was being destroyed from within. Somehow the enemy had gotten inside his ships and turned their own technology against them. But how, when? His security teams reported no breaches, no unauthorized entries, no signs of sabotage. As his flagship systems began to fail, Admiral Kethvar finally understood what they were truly fighting. These were not soldiers or even warriors in any conventional sense. They were hunters who had evolved beyond the need for fair combat, predators who could turn any environment into a weapon. All ships, he broadcast on emergency frequencies. Immediate retreat, full withdrawal from human space. Do not attempt to fight these creatures. Admiral Kethavar's remaining ships struggled through space, their damaged systems failing one by one. What had started as the galaxy's greatest military force was now a collection of broken vessels, barely able to maintain life support. The Admiral sat in his command chair, staring at casualty reports that made no sense. "Sir," his communications officer reported with a trembling voice, "we are receiving a transmission. It appears to be coming from inside our own ship." The Admiral's blood turned cold. "That is impossible. Our internal communication systems are secure. Nevertheless, sir, the signal is originating from Deck 7, Section C, but our security teams report that area is empty." On the main screen, a human face appeared. The man wore no uniform, no rank insignia, nothing to identify him except for the cold intelligence in his eyes. When he spoke, his voice was calm and reasonable, which somehow made it more terrifying. "Admiral Kethavar," the human said, "my name is Colonel David Reese, United Earth Special Operations Command. We need to talk." The Admiral gestured frantically to his security chief. "Find that human. He is somewhere on my ship." But Colonel Reese continued speaking as if he could hear every word. "Your security teams will not find me, Admiral. We are very good at remaining hidden. But do not worry. I am not here to hurt you. I am here to deliver a message." "How did you get aboard my ship?" the Admiral demanded. "We have been here for 6 hours," Reese replied with a slight smile. "We came aboard during your retreat from the mining colony. Your sensors detected our insertion, but your computer systems filed it as routine maintenance activity. Amazing what a few small changes to your database can accomplish." Admiral Kethavar realized that his ship had been compromised from the very beginning. While he thought he was escaping from the human trap, he had actually been carrying his enemies with him. "What do you want?" "To show you something," Reese said. "Your fleet is not retreating, Admiral. You are being herded just like at the mining colony. Look at your navigation charts. The tactical display activated showing the current position of the Coalition fleet." The Admiral studied the formation and felt his heart sink. His ships were not moving in a random retreat pattern. They were being guided along specific routes, forced into predetermined positions by subtle system malfunctions and navigation errors. "You see it now," Reese observed. "Every system failure, every communication breakdown, every navigation error has been carefully planned. You are not fleeing from us, Admiral. You are flying directly into our trap." The Admiral's aide checked the sensor readings. "Sir, we are approaching the neutron fields. If we continue on this course, we will be trapped between the gravitational anomalies and the asteroid belt." "Change course immediately," the Admiral ordered. "We cannot, sir. The navigation system is locked. It will not respond to manual commands." Colonel Reese's image flickered slightly, as if the transmission was coming from very far away. "Your ships will not obey you anymore, Admiral. We control your computers, your sensors, your weapons, and your life support. With a single command, I could turn your entire fleet into drifting coffins." "Then why do you not do it?" the Admiral asked. "Because dead enemies cannot deliver messages," Reese replied. "And we have a very important message for the Galactic Coalition." The main display changed to show a three-dimensional map of the local star systems. Red dots mark the positions of Coalition forces throughout the region. As the Admiral watched in horror, the red dots began disappearing one by one. "Your support fleets are currently being eliminated," Reese explained in the same calm tone. "Task Force Omega destroyed the 7th Battle Group 15 minutes ago. The Phantom Division eliminated your supply depot at Kepler Station. Ghost Squadron has disabled your communication relay at Proxima Base." The Admiral counted the losses. "You have eliminated over 200 ships in less than 1 day. That is impossible. Humanity does not have enough forces to attack so many targets simultaneously." "You still do not understand what you are fighting," Reese said. "You studied our armies and thought you knew us. You saw soldiers who fight in formation, who follow orders, who use conventional tactics. That is why you were confident you could defeat us." The display changed again, showing footage of human special forces in action. But these were not the dramatic battle scenes the aliens had studied before. These recordings showed humans moving through alien ships like ghosts, appearing and disappearing without explanation, turning the enemy's own weapons against them. Our armies fight like soldiers because that is what armies do, Reese continued. But special forces do not fight like soldiers. We fight like apex predators. We study our prey, learn their weaknesses, and strike when they are most vulnerable. Admiral Kethvar watched a recording of human operators disabling an entire space station with only 6 people. They had not used massive weapons or overwhelming force. Instead, they had identified critical systems and disabled them with surgical precision. The station's crew never knew they were under attack until it was too late. "How many of you are there?" the Admiral asked. "Enough," Reese replied. "Every human colony has special forces units. Every human ship carries operators. Every human station is defended by people you will never see until they choose to reveal themselves." The Admiral realized that humanity's true military strength had been hidden all along. The armies that had so impressed the galaxy were just the visible portion of Earth's forces. The real weapon was invisible, composed of hunters who could strike anywhere without warning. "Your fleets will continue to be eliminated until you reach the neutron fields," Reese said. "Once there, you will have a choice. You can try to fight your way out, knowing that we control every system on your ships. Or you can listen to Earth's terms for peace." "And what terms?" the Admiral asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "Complete withdrawal from human space, recognition of Earth's sovereignty over all systems we currently occupy, establishment of diplomatic relations on terms we will dictate." Reese paused. "Oh, and one more thing. You will deliver a message to the Galactic Coalition." The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Kethvar alone with his thoughts. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically to regain control of their ship's systems, but nothing responded. They were passengers now, carried along by an invisible force toward whatever fate the humans had planned. Hours later, the battered Coalition fleet emerged from hyperspace in the neutron fields. As promised, they found themselves trapped between gravitational anomalies that would tear apart any ship that tried to pass through them and an asteroid belt that provided perfect cover for hidden enemies. "Sir," reported the sensor operator, "we are detecting multiple contacts in the asteroid field. The signatures are unusual." Admiral Kethvar looked at the display and saw something that would haunt his dreams for the rest of his life. The asteroids themselves were moving, repositioning to create a perfect kill zone. But they were not asteroids at all. They were human ships, disguised so perfectly that they had remained invisible even at close range. "How long have they been waiting here?" he whispered. His aide checked the sensor logs. "Based on the positioning, sir, I would estimate they have been in place for at least 3 days. They knew exactly where we would be and when we would arrive." The Admiral realized that everything since the mining colony had been choreographed. The humans had not simply reacted to the Coalition attack. They had predicted it, planned for it, and prepared a response that would eliminate the threat while delivering a message that would echo across the galaxy. A new transmission appeared on the screen. This time it showed dozens of human faces, men and women from different nations and different branches of their military, but they all shared the same look of cold competence that Admiral Kethvar was beginning to recognize. "Admiral," said a woman who appeared to be their leader, "I am General Patricia Hayes, Commander of United Earth Special Operations. Welcome to the neutron fields. You have been chosen to deliver a message to your leaders. Are you ready to hear Earth's terms?" Admiral Kethvar nodded, knowing he had no choice. Around him, his fleet sat helpless, surrounded by enemies who had outthought, outmaneuvered, and outfought the galaxy's most advanced military force. "Very good," General Hayes said. "Then let us begin negotiations. But first, let me show you what happens to those who refuse to listen." The display changed to show the complete destruction of a Coalition supply base. The attack had been so swift and thorough that the base's distress signal had never been sent. One moment it existed, the next it was debris floating in space. "That base was eliminated 6 hours ago," Hayes explained. "The crews never knew they were under attack. We could do the same to every Coalition facility in this sector, and no one would know until it was too late." Admiral Kethvar finally understood that he was not negotiating from a position of strength. He was a messenger, chosen to carry news of humanity's power back to those who had dared to threaten Earth. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. Admiral Kethvar stood before the assembled representatives, his once proud uniform now bearing the stains of defeat. Behind him, holographic displays showed the wreckage of what had been the galaxy's most powerful fleet. Of 800 ships that had departed to crush humanity, Only 63 had returned. Council Speaker Zara's ancient voice cut through the silence. Admiral, your report suggests that a small number of human ships destroyed most of your fleet. This seems unlikely. With respect, Speaker Zara, you are thinking about this wrong, the Admiral replied. We were not defeated by ships. We were hunted by predators who happened to use ships as tools. He activated the first recording, showing the aftermath of the supply convoy destruction. This was not a battle. It was an execution. The humans turned our own fuel against us, creating chain reactions that eliminated 12 vessels simultaneously. But here is what troubles me most. The image zoomed in on the wreckage. The explosions originated from inside our ships. Somehow, human operatives had placed charges in our most secure areas without triggering a single alarm. They were ghosts moving through our fleet, invisible until they chose to strike. Ambassador Trill of the Peaceful Federation leaned forward. You are saying they boarded your ships without detection? That is impossible. Your security systems are among the most advanced in the galaxy. That is what I thought, Admiral Kethvar said grimly. But I have learned that human special forces do not fight according to our understanding of possible and impossible. Watch this. The next recording showed the interior of his own flagship. The timestamp indicated it was from the height of battle, yet the corridors appeared empty. Then for just a moment, a section of wall seemed to shimmer, and a human figure became briefly visible before fading back into invisibility. They were inside our ships for hours, the Admiral continued, moving through ventilation systems, walking on walls and ceilings using technology that bent light around them. They studied our layouts, learned our weaknesses, and struck with surgical precision. General Voss of the Titanium clans made a sound like grinding metal. Even if they could board undetected, how did they coordinate such widespread attacks? The distances involved would make communication impossible. Admiral Kethvar's expression grew darker. That is perhaps the most frightening aspect of all. They did not need to communicate because they had planned everything in advance. Every attack, every system failure, every navigation error was choreographed days before we even arrived. He showed them a tactical map of the entire engagement. See how my fleet was herded from the mining colony to the neutron fields? Every route we took, every decision we made was predicted and planned for. We thought we were making strategic choices, but we were actually following a script written by human minds. Counselor Yith's crystalline form chimed with distress. You are describing an impossible level of prediction. No species can anticipate every variable in such a complex situation. Human special forces can, the Admiral replied. They think differently than we do. While we plan for the most likely scenarios, they plan for every possible scenario. While we react to events, they create events. They are not just soldiers. They are artists of warfare. The next recording showed the final confrontation in the neutron fields. The assembled aliens watched in horror as asteroids revealed themselves to be perfectly camouflaged human ships. The precision of the ambush was breathtaking. They had been waiting for us for 3 days, Admiral Kethvar explained. Not in some hidden base, but right there in the asteroid field. Their ships were so perfectly disguised that our sensors read them as space rocks until they chose to reveal themselves. Speaker Zara's voice was barely a whisper. How many of these special forces do the humans possess? Unknown, the Admiral replied. But I believe every human ship, every human station, every human colony has these operators. They are everywhere and nowhere, visible only when they choose to be. He activated a final recording, this one showing General Hayes delivering Earth's terms. The assembled council listened in stunned silence as the human commander spoke with calm authority about humanity's expectations for future relations. They offered us a choice, Admiral Kethvar continued. Peaceful coexistence in trade, or the systematic elimination of every coalition military asset in this sector. To demonstrate their capability, they showed us recordings of supply bases and listening posts that had been destroyed without anyone even knowing they were under attack. Commander Zilp clicked his mandibles nervously. What did you tell them? I told them I would deliver their message, the Admiral replied. Because the alternative was the complete destruction of my remaining ships and crews. These humans do not bluff. When they make a threat, they have already calculated exactly how to carry it out. The council chamber erupted in frightened whispers. Representatives from a dozen species spoke at once, their voices mixing into a cacophony of fear and confusion. Finally, Speaker Zara called for order. Admiral, she said, what is your military assessment of the human threat? Admiral Kethavar was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. Speaker Zara, we are not dealing with a military threat. We are dealing with evolution in action. Somewhere in the distant past, humanity's ancestors were hunted by predators. Instead of becoming prey, they became better predators. He gestured to the tactical displays. Their armies fight like soldiers because that is what armies do. But their special forces have evolved beyond conventional warfare. They fight like apex predators who have learned to use technology. They do not seek glory or honor. They seek only the elimination of threats to their pack. What do you recommend? Asked General Voss. Immediate acceptance of their terms, the Admiral replied without hesitation. We cannot fight them because we cannot find them. We cannot predict them because they think in ways we do not understand. We cannot defeat them because they have already won before the battle begins. The debate that followed lasted for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. Species after species spoke of their own encounters with human forces, adding to the growing picture of a predator species that had learned to hunt among the stars. In the end, the vote was unanimous. The Galactic Coalition would accept Earth's terms for peace. Trade agreements would be negotiated on human terms. Territorial boundaries would be respected according to human definitions. Most importantly, no coalition force would enter human space without explicit permission. As the council dispersed, Admiral Kethavar remained behind, staring at the tactical displays. His aide approached cautiously. Sir, what are you thinking about? I am thinking about evolution, the Admiral replied. For millions of years, we have been the dominant species in this galaxy. We built civilizations, formed alliances, and maintained order. We thought we were at the top of the food chain. He pointed to the image of a human special forces operator, barely visible even in the recording. But humanity has shown us that there is always a higher level. They are not just another species. They are what we might become if we learn to think like predators instead of civilized beings. Is that necessarily a bad thing? His aide asked. Admiral Kethavar considered the question. Perhaps not. The humans offered us peace, trade, and cooperation. They could have simply eliminated us all and we would never have known what hit us. Instead, they chose to negotiate. He paused, watching as the recording showed human operators emerging from their perfect camouflage to accept the coalition's surrender. But I think we need to remember that we are no longer the apex species in this galaxy. We are alive because humanity chooses to let us live. That is both humbling and terrifying. As Admiral Kethavar left the council chamber, he carried with him a new understanding of humanity's place in the galaxy. They were not conquerors or destroyers. They were gardeners, maintaining the balance of power by ensuring that no species became too aggressive or too dangerous. The galaxy had a new apex predator, and for the first time in millions of years, the other species could sleep safely knowing that someone was watching from the shadows, ready to hunt down any threat that might emerge. Earth's special forces had done more than win a military victory. They had established a new order, where strength was measured not by the size of one's fleet or the power of one's weapons, but by the ability to strike without warning and disappear without trace. The age of conventional warfare was over. The age of the human hunter had begun.